G'day guys, I'm Benji and welcome back to Built by Benji and part 3, the final part of this enclosure build. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's just jump straight in. Here I'm just creating a rebate for the doors to close into. Just a bit of scrap material, 19mm by about 5mm thick, and halve it up over the edge to create a rebate. Give yourself a couple of little guidelines as you're going along. Now the piece along the front is about 42mm by 5mm, not 19mm by 5.
So doors are all dry, put it up last night, they're all dry, ready to go now. I've got the hardware here to show you that I use on my doors and the air vents. So they're the air vents I use, just an aluminium air vent. Put 4 of them, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom and the back. I've got some 65 and 35 butt hinges, and then I've got 2 of these drawer locks which curl the lock. So all it is so the tongue on it. They keep everything nice and secure. Now install the locks. I've got a 20mm spade bit and a 32mm spade bit. So the 20mm spade bit is for the outside of the door. That's for your lock to actually slip in. And the 32mm you rebate into the back of the door half the thickness. That's for the little keeper that stops the lock from spinning when you turn the key. So what I'll do now is I'll get the door out. So those are the doors that we done yesterday. Inside panel, outside of the panel, and there's a strips I was talking about, the regular one. So what we do now is, when I'm looking at the tank from the front, I want the tongue and the groove. So with the tongue and the groove, I want the groove facing back, the tongue facing me. So when you're looking down, looking into the enclosure, you don't actually see if there's any gaps in that groove. So when you're looking into it, it looks nice and flush. So that there's inside, outside. I'll find centre, mark a hole. The outside, I'll go through the outside with the 20mm spade, halfway, and then flip it over and go 32mm halfway, and then that way, by rights, it should pop out with 2 different hole sizes. And then hinge 200mm up, 200mm down either side. Check them in with a chisel and a standing knife. Mark them on the enclosure themselves, check them in the enclosure. It's just so that you don't end up with, I don't like just screwing the hinges straight on those butt hinge, because that's about 3mm thick. So what I do is I actually check it into the door itself. So I'll just sit it like that. Kept it in the wrong spot. I'll just sit it on there like so. Scribe around the outside of where it's going to be. Then I'll check it in. However thick the hinges, I'll check inside sits flush. But we'll get the lock started, and we'll come back and look at the hinge part after we've done the locks. That's what I'll do. .32 on the inside. up there. So you've got to put putty around the edge of this to build it all in anyway. But that's the inside of the door. So your locking sleeve can go in. That's outside of your door. So that's the outside. Get the key. Take your key out. You're there for that. That's inside the door. Now all this part here will get filled in with putty and sanded back. That's just to hide all the mechanism and everything, make it look pretty. But that's your locks. So you do that at both doors. Once you've done that, you're ready for hinges. Now what I'll do is I'll go over and I'll mark where that swings on the enclosure. And remember, I only tack nailed the front rebate on, because what I'll do is then transfer the marks onto that front rebate. I'll go over from the saw and I'll shave it out so that there locks in behind the timber of the frame, but you don't see the tongue through the rebate. So what I'll do now is I'll come along and I'll mark along 200mm from top and bottom. Just set my square. Put a little mark on the side. Now I'll get my, move this camera so you can see what I'm doing. I'll open my hinge up like that, so it's right angled, so that's closed position, that's wide open. I'll sit it on here. I'll mark around the outside of the hinge. On the inside of the 200mm down. Next part I'll do is I'll get my chisels out. I've got my marks down there where my hinge is going to be rebated. Get my chisels out and I'll chisel out them points. Put the hinge back in, put a couple of screws in it, make sure it all sits right. Then we'll get the enclosure on the bench after I've marked out and routed out the air vents. And then we can do the same thing, transfer the marks onto the enclosure itself. Check out the enclosure hinges on the enclosure, so that way when everything goes in, all you're seeing from the outside of the enclosure is that little line of the hinges. So some people just screw them flat on like that. I don't like that look, so I'll just go flat on the face of the enclosure, flat on the face of the door. I just reckon it looks cheap. So what I'll do with mine, I'll rebate them inside. So that's all you're seeing. You can't really even see it, but that's all you'll be seeing of the hinges. Make yourself a jig up from your router first to cut me air vents out. I found where my air vent's going to sit on the inside, and I've gone and put a big cross on the back of my enclosure that lines up the centre of this cutout. I've gone and put my straight cut plunge bit into my router. Now what I'll do is I'll follow this around, trace this around, and I'll cut my vents in. So as you can see now, I've got my four vents cut in the back of the enclosure. Then all I'll do is screw them over the top. So that part's done now. Now we're at the stage where we've got to put the door up here, work out whereabouts our hinges are going to go, put a couple of little pencil marks there, take one of the hinges off, do the same thing as we did when we were putting them on the door, mark the outside of it, check the hinges in, and we can screw the doors on, and then we can get to the point where we work out the door lock. Big gust of wind just come through my shed before and knocked over one of my doors, put a big chip in the top corner of it, so gonna have to putty that up. Not real happy about it, but it is what it is. I'm not making a complete new door just for a chip. If I was selling it, yeah, I would make a new door, but because it's just for me personally, I wouldn't worry about it. I can live with it. So we get our door. Open your hinges up. Sit your door in place. Now, you get some spacers or some packers or something to centralise your gut. I'm just going to eye it. I'm pretty happy with that. Get my pencil. I'm just going to put a little mark either side of that hinge. And you'll see why in a minute. That's not where we're checking out. That's just so I can locate where the hinges have got to go. I'll take one of these hinges off the door. Stand our door back down here. There's a little chip that I took out. It's not nothing much, but still not good. So because we've got sand all the outside of this, doesn't matter, it's got pencil on at the moment. Now with our little pencil marks that we just put there, once again, right angle your hinge, put him where your marks are, and trace it up on the rebate edge.
mark out whereabouts our log keeper needs to be checked out, and that piece of timber that's only tuck nailed on. Here I'm just setting the cut stop so my saw doesn't cut too deep through the whole bit of material, but is enough to make the rebate that I need. Now through a series of cuts I'll just cut along the timber to make a little check out, a little lot to look into. Alright guys, I've spent the morning going around puttying up all my nail holes, just running over all my joints, make sure there's no little cracks or anything in them when it's lacquered. So just getting ready for final sand, and once the final sand's been done I can start lacquering it, or stain it first and then lacquer it. A bit of polyurethane clear. So I've taken the doors off, I've still got a putty around, I've still got to tape up this hole and get putty in and around the lock, just so it hasn't got that big rebate in there and just looks a bit nicer. And what the putty does, it holds that nut, holds the the locking plate, holds everything in place so it doesn't move around on you. So what I've done here is I've just taped up around that hole, filled it with putty, so then I can give that a little sand. I've just taped it up so I don't smear too much on good timber, and then it'll be right for sanding when we get to that stage. But I'm pretty much all at the stage now where I can tidy everything up, start sanding, and get it all locked away.